When an object is placed at rest at the top of a hill, it might not roll down the hill if the coefficient of friction is too low, or if the angle of the incline is too steep. Then instead of rolling, the object will just slide from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. So we know the object starts with an initial speed of 0, and then by the time it gets to the bottom of the hill, it's going to have some final translational velocity. And what I'm talking about here is the velocity of the center of mass. So if it undergoes pure rolling motion, then the velocity of the contact point has a velocity equal to 0. Otherwise, it's rolling with slipping if there's relative velocity between the contact point and the surface. So the velocity of the center of mass is described by this vector, and of course that means the velocity of the top part is moving even faster, right? Because it has, along with it, it starts with an angular speed of 0, but if it develops some angular velocity as it rolls to the bottom of the hill, that means a piece of something stuck to the rim of the wheel is going to be moving faster than the center of mass of the wheel. Let's imagine in this case that we're dealing with a solid disk or a solid cylinder. Okay, so I named the shape so that we know what the rotational inertia about its center of mass would be equal to. That's 1/2 mr squared. And then let's draw all the forces that are acting on this object and see if we can use that to figure out what's the minimum required coefficient of friction based on an angle of theta. So there are a few forces to consider. There's gravity that acts at the center of mass. Then there's normal force. The normal force acts at the contact point with the surface. Normal force, gravity, mg, and then friction. Let's figure out the direction of the friction force. So if an object starts with 0 angular velocity and eventually develops a clockwise angular velocity, then we know its angular acceleration points clockwise as well. And the only way you can have a clockwise angular acceleration is if you have a clockwise torque. So let's consider the center of mass as the axis of rotation. No matter what you choose as the axis of rotation, whether you think of it as the contact point or the center of mass, you should find that the torque is clockwise in order to have a clockwise angular acceleration. So yeah, let's think about it like this. Let's say the center of mass is the axis of rotation. Then normal force along with gravity are not torque producing, so the only force that remains would be the friction force. And the only way the friction force could produce a clockwise torque, well, if the friction force has a lever arm from the axis of rotation to the point where it's applied of r, the only way we get clockwise is if the friction points this way, up the incline. So it's interesting, when pure rolling motion takes place, there's no coefficient of kinetic friction that you should be concerned with because there's no sliding that takes place. There's only a coefficient of static friction that you should be concerned with. And when static friction is the friction between a rolling object and a ramp, whether the object is rolling downhill or uphill, it seems that the friction force always points uphill. Okay, so based off of this rigid body diagram, we could say that the net torque is equal to, let's switch our frame of reference and consider the point of contact as the axis of rotation. Then the net torque, well, friction would no longer be torque producing because it acts at our axis. Normal force would not be torque producing, it acts at the axis, but the gravity force would be torque producing because it has a lever arm of r force, and then there's an angle theta, which is the same as the angle of the incline. So our net torque comes from the gravity force acting with a lever arm equal to the radius of the disk, and we have to account for the angle between those vectors. Net torque is equal to I alpha because we've shifted our axis from the center of mass to the contact point. that shifts our rotational inertia, and we have to use the parallel axis theorem. So I should equal I center of mass plus md squared. So in this case it's 1/2 mr squared plus an additional mr squared, which gives us 3/2 mr squared. So net torque is I alpha. There's the I. We need to throw in an alpha, and that's equal to mgr sine theta. Cancel out the m, cancel out one of the r's, and we get alpha is equal to 2/3 g over r sine theta. But because this is pure rolling motion and there's no velocity at any given instant between the contact point and the disk itself, then we know the acceleration of the center of mass has to equal alpha times r. So we get the acceleration of the center of mass is equal to 2/3 g sine theta. Okay, well, there's another way we can figure out the acceleration of the center of mass, and that is instead of considering net torque, let's consider net force. So if I turn all three of these forces, normal force, gravity, and friction, into a free body diagram, it's a little simpler. We have normal force, friction force, a component of mg cosine theta, and then another component of mg sine theta. Now I know that normal force and mg cosine theta are equal because there's no acceleration of the object along the y-axis. In fact, there's only acceleration down the incline in the positive x-axis, which means mg sine theta has to be greater in magnitude than the friction force for it to accelerate down the hill. So our net force is equal to mg sine theta minus the friction force. So that means ma is mg sine theta minus the friction force. So if I rearrange a little bit, the friction force is mg sine theta minus ma, and here of course we mean the acceleration of the center of mass. So I can make a substitution. So the friction force is equal to mg sine theta minus 2/3 mg sine theta. This is static friction, and static friction is always less than or equal to mu times n. So the static force of friction is less than or equal to the static force of friction, mg sine theta minus 2/3 mg sine theta. That's the force of static friction, and it has to be less than or equal to mu times the normal force, which is mg cosine theta. So I can think of mg sine theta as 3/3 mg sine theta. So 3/3 minus 2/3, of course, gives me 1/3. 1/3 mg sine theta is less than or equal to mu mg cosine theta. M and g appear on both sides of the equation and cancel out. So if I transpose the equation, mu must be greater than or equal to 1/3 tangent theta. That means the minimum required coefficient of static friction has to be 1/3 tangent theta. If the coefficient of friction is any greater than that, then it's a guarantee when you place this object at rest, it's going to roll without slipping. If the coefficient of friction is any less than this, then when you place the object on the ramp, instead of rolling, all points on the object are going to move together, and it's going to slide very much like a block would just slide down the incline.